Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam, Trilokyam Sacharacharam, Tatpadam Darshitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata cha Pita, Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha, Tvameva Vedyad Ravinam, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva, Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Yatha sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stithani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. So I think we finished the story of Dhamma and others, of Shambhara and the super demons. Didn't we do that? Did we finish the story last week? Mark, where are we?
We're on page 94, number 38, 39.
So we didn't finish it, or did we?
Yeah, I believe so.
We've started the new story?
It's a new section, not new story.
New section, all right. So remember what we have so far. So in the battle, Shambhara created the 3 Terminators, and they were without ego, and they could not be defeated. And the ploy that Brahma, the creator, gave them was to fight against them, the Devas, then retreat, pretend to be defeated, go do it again. Meaning these Terminator demons repeated the action wherein they had success, which gave them joy. Because of that, they had chintya. Gee, that was swell. We just whooped their butts. After the fact, thinking about it. Once that starts to happen, ego starts to develop, then pride develops, then fear. Once that happened, the Devas could wipe them out. Then we had the Terminator 2s. They also were without ego, but they had additional qualities. Who can remember what those qualities were? Because it's really important. Green toes? Doesn't anybody remember? Well versed in the scriptures. There was another one.
Knowledge of the self.
They had that already. Viveka, they had discrimination. Pretty sure those 2. There might have been a third, but I can't remember it. But the point is, they had the tools to keep ego from reforming. So I brought this in contrast with Shloka 267 from Viveka Chudamani, which I think is one of the most important ones. Even after realization of the truth, there exists a strong impression that one is the doer and the enjoyer, which is the cause for rebirth. Here meaning re-identification. Shankara says this needs to be conscientiously rooted out. How? Through steady and continuous identification with the self. How do we know to do that? Because we've been given the tools by the scriptures, by hearing the knowledge from the teacher. Ego arises, we go, I see you. I'm not going to believe you. We can let it go. And they were undefeatable. All right, going on. New section.
We are on verse 38, 39.
I guess so. Is that right? Verse 38, 39?
That's what I have written down.
Okay. Soyam atma param brahma sarvam apurya sanstitah dvitiya kalpanaiveha narabhu vaha vidyate brahma matrat hrite vahnau ashyan matrat hrite yatha. That is the self, the supreme Brahman or ultimate reality, which stands filling up everything, Raghava. There is not even the formation or imagination of a second here in the universe without the one Brahman, just as there is nothing else imaginable in fire without the mere heat.
So, where is the locus of Maya? Some people think, oh, it's in my mind. No. Mind is the result of Maya. Where is the locus of Maya? Brahman. Maya is the word we use to explain how the impossible seems possible. How is it that consciousness, which is one without a second, there is no otherness, which is always self-existent, self-experiencing as I, aham, seemingly forks into subject object. What is this world of name and form? Seen, but not real. Why do we call this teaching Advaita? Because it looks like two. I see stuff, but it's not two. So just like when you go to the movie, nothing really touches you. If there's a bloody war scene on the screen when the movie's over, there's no blood on the screen. So also, none of the vicissitudes of this apparent world ever really touch the self. All right, next verse.
Adav shamadam aprayai gunai shishyam prabodhaye paschat sarvam idam brahmam shuddha sattvam iti bodhaye. In the beginning, one should instruct the disciple in qualities like tranquility and self-restraint. Then one should instruct, all this is Brahman, the Supreme Spirit. You are holy.
So here, again, this is an abridgment, so there are many verses which are excluded. Here we have what appears to be a contradiction. In the beginning, we are taught yamas, niyamas, the do's and don'ts. We are given the qualifications of a fit student, viveka, vairagya, samadhi guna, qualities of shama, etc. Shama, dhamma, uparati, titiksha, shraddha, samadhana. I think I got them all. Was that 6? Mumukshutva, the burning desire for liberation. When we have practiced those to some degree, it creates buddhi shuddha, a pure mind. You are buddhi sattva, a bodhisattva, one with a pure intellect. Then the teacher is able to say, still the mind a bit. There's a famous Zen koan, a bell ringing in an empty sky. My version is, can you just listen to the traffic? See that there's no one there hearing it, no person there. Vast, empty chidakasha that we get in this text, space of pure awareness, which is Brahman, is what you are. So it's sequential. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
अज्ञस्तार्थ प्रबुद्धस्य सर्वं ब्रह्मेति यो वदेत् महानरकुलाजेषु सतेन विनियोजितः. Whoever tells one who is ignorant or half awake that all is Brahman, the Supreme Spirit, he, the ignorant one, is disposed off to the great web of hell by him.
Yes. So, if someone is not yet ready for it, we get caught in what I call the Vedanta logic loop. Oh, from the highest wisdom, the highest viewpoint, all is Brahman. All struggles should cease. Be totally out of control, act spontaneously in the world. But if this teaching is given to a student when there's still a lot of impurity in the mind, it can become a rationalization, one, for bad behavior, and two, it rationalizes our suffering. Do you meditate? Oh, no, I don't meditate. That's just a mind state. Do you do any practices? Oh, no, I don't do any practices. That's all illusion. Why did you yell at me? Because it doesn't matter. It's just anger came up, so I'm going to hit you. What did you do last night? Oh, I shot heroin. But it doesn't matter. It's all an illusion. You can do whatever you want. It's all an illusion. And then one wonders, why am I so miserable? I may intellectually know my misery is an illusion, which it is. But the fact is, I'm still miserable. So first, you become adhikari, fit student. then we receive the knowledge. Practically speaking, the student's mind has to be able to some degree tune up, drop everything, so they can begin to taste the bliss of Brahman. If they cannot do that yet, then they go into a very nihilistic place. There's no point in doing anything. The world is all ashes. It's all stupid. It's all vanity. You know, and I'm still agitated and upset. But there's no point in going after anything. I might as well just shoot myself. That's not liberation. That's not liberation. Any thoughts on this? All right, going on.
Sorry, I had a quick question, Jim.
Is that
Is that
Justin?
okay? Yes, it is.
Yes, go for it.
I've been here the whole time. I noticed that when I go to the temple, they seem to be quite obsessed, almost in fear-based about even letting anyone in the temple. You know what I mean? And it just seemed like, I don't know if it's such an illusion because of COVID. Why are they so terrified? I don't know. It's just weird. You see what I'm saying? It's like
about their mind states.
Well, I don't know. It just seems like they don't even want to open up the bookstores.
Do your own yoga, Justin.
Okay, no worries. My apologies.
There's no value in trying to take other people's inventory.
No, but okay, my apologies. Wasn't looking to do that. I
No,
was just
not
wondering
apologies,
what their
but-
resistance was. Okay,
Who cares what the resistance is? It's none of your business.
okay, my apologies.
But this is for everybody, not just you. We cannot do someone else's yoga. There is nothing to be gained. In program, we call it taking another person's inventory. It's pointless. It's pointless. Only do our own yoga. Now, again, for you, are you at a point where you were saying to yourself, I don't need to get a vaccine because Brahman can't be touched, so I'm going to go out and it doesn't matter if I get COVID, it isn't real? That's this consignment to hell that the scripture's talking about.
That wasn't I got all my vaccines, and I got them from the beginning, and I did everything that was logical and scientific from the beginning. But that's why I usually seem to enjoy Vedanta. So thank you.
And other people make their own decisions and choices. But someone could say to you or me, I'm vaccinated. Why are you in fear of getting a disease? Isn't it all Brahman? No, it's just prudent. But the most important point here, there's nothing to be gained by forming opinions about other people's states of mind. Nothing. Do our own yoga. Oh. And if you want to get really deep in it, the question I would ask is, why do I have a judgment here? What's going on with me? What's my identification or attachment? Because I'm judging these people. I think they're being fearful. They don't need to be fearful. They're not living up to some idea of Hindu spirituality, maybe. See, what in me is judging? Always bring it back to ourselves. Any other thoughts on this? All right, next verse.
Avidya yaivotat maya swatma nashodhya motathaya vidya sa prapyate yadvat malena kshala te malam. By the very illusion or ignorance of the highest kind arising from the effort to extinguish one's own mind, that knowledge of the Supreme Spirit is obtained just as dirt is washed off by dirt. There's a note.
Please.
Any mental effort or imagination in the stage of spiritual practice, including concentration of various kinds, is illusory, inasmuch as it veils the reality which is of the nature of pure consciousness beyond thought. But such practice enables the aspirant to transcend the mind and be established in reality or pure existence consciousness bliss.
Yes. So those of us who are reading Ashtavakra Gita or Avadhuta Gita, they basically tell you to stop practicing. We get rid of the mumukshu, the seeker after liberation. But here, what Yoga Vasishta is saying is, if you do that, when it's not your final attachment, then you're left with a dirty mind. A mind that has malam. We want to be near malam, without any dirt, without any taint. So we do these preliminary practices till the mind is soft. Then when we hear the truth, it's a different experience. All right, next verse.
Kuto vidya jateti ramamastu vicharana imam katham aham bhande yesha testu vicharana. From where was this ignorance produced? Let there not be such an investigation, Rama. How shall I destroy this ignorance? Let this be your investigation.
Yes. So essentially, why is not a particularly good spiritual question. How the F can I get out of it is a much better one. It's like the person who's been bitten by a snake. And they ask, where did that snake come from? What was its ancestry? How was it colored? No, give me the antidote. Now, the 7 questions that Shankara has, again, the language is slightly different. What is bondage? How has it come about? Through my spiritual ignorance. How does it continue to exist? Because of the force of my past, the vasanas. How do I get out of it completely? First become adhikari, then atma vichara, inquire into the nature of yourself. This is one of the reasons I love the text Vivekachudamani, because it gives us this process. If you start at the beginning and you commit to do your best, not just to read everything Shankara has written, but to do what he suggests, Amazing things will happen. Sometimes, though, if we're not ready, we'll read some of these absolute scriptures like Mandukya. We get very inspired, and oh, that's comforting. But it has done very little to release the tight grip of egoism. All right, next verse.
Astam gatayam sheenayam asyam yayasvi raghava yata eshaya yachesha yatha nashte khanditam kischit shubhita rupasa chittakshi chinmaharnave. Raghava, when this ignorance has been removed and destroyed, you will know in entirety from whence was this born, by whom was this produced, and how was this destroyed. In the great ocean of consciousness, that power or energy of consciousness appears to be a little agitated.
Yes. So there's the appearance of spanda, vibration or agitation. That's what all this world is vibration held together by thought.
What text line is that again? Sorry, I'm listening. That sounds wonderful.
What number verse?
Yeah, what number verse are we on? That sounds wonderful. I want to reread that on my own.
What number is that?
43, 44.
43.
Thank you. My apologies.
44. No
Thank you.
problem. Going on.
Vikalpa kalita karam deshakala kriyasyadam chito rupam mahabaho kshetrajna iti kathyate. Long-armed one, Rama, the state or condition of consciousness which has gathered or obtained a form due to ignorance or error, and which is the seat of place, time, and action, is called the knower of the field. That is the individual soul which experiences the body.
So we have this explanation of how does my sense of individuality arise. It's when Chaitanya, Chitta, takes on a form. The bija form, the seed form, is the body itself. The Buddhists call this dependent origination, such that the phenomenal world and the perception of it and the sense of an individual knower of it arise together. For example, all you folks out there in Zoom land, do you know whether or not the French doors in my bedroom were open? No. Only an individual person sitting here can see, yeah, they're cracked. But what we want to be able to do is make the distinction between that sense of an individual knower, chitta, ankara. Stop the thoughting, the vimarsha, the vikalpa. And that individuality ceases. It is a temporary, impermanent sense of self. Thickens and it thins. Any thoughts on this? Now, very simple way to understand what he's saying here. If you close your eyes and visualize an orange, we've got beautiful citrus fruit coming into season. Now, I do not know the orange you visualized. Only you do. And the orange you visualize is only chitta, mind stuff, vibrating a bit. Both the individual you and the orange you imagined are rupa, a form that arises. Chitto rupa, wasn't that what he said?
Yeah.
Forms in the mind. That's all this world is. And that's all the individuality is. Again, if this is difficult to understand, just put it on the shelf for now. Going on.
Vasana kalayan sopi yatyahankaratam punaha ahankaro vinirneta kalanki buddhiruchyate. He, the knower of the field, too, putting on or assuming mental impressions again, goes to the state of ego. The ego is the judge or decision maker, and the intellect is faulty or stained since it causes the illusion of identification with the body.
So in the Vijnana Maya Kosha, technically speaking, the subtle intellectual sheath, there is a function called ahankara. In it, in the intellect, that function continually identifies the self with the not self, with the body, with my narrative, with my feelings, with the experiences of the body. How? Because of Vasana. Now, what makes me take this as myself is the spiritual ignorance that is part of what a Vasana can do. So back to our visualization of an orange. What's the difference between visualizing an orange and dreaming about an orange? Both are just imagination. But in the dream state, the precondition is non-apprehension of myself as the waker. Then I take the imagined orange as real. So too, when I'm identified with this ego sense, this ahankriti, personally, I like to use the term jiva bhavana. Bhavana means an attitude or a feeling. It's the feeling that I'm a person. I take it as real because of spiritual ignorance, because of the non-apprehension of myself. But if I thin the mind, and notice the knower. That individuality just melts. What's left is Chidakasha, the space of pure awareness. Any thoughts on this? Going on.
Buddhi sankalpa kalita prayati mananaspadam mano dhan vikalpam tu gachatindriyatam shatai panipada dimad deham indriyani vidu buddha. The intellect seized by will or wish becomes the seat of thinking. The mind, by dense or great uncertainty or error, indeed attains to the state of the senses slowly. Wise men regard the senses as the body possessed of hands, feet, and other organs. Note, the above four verses trace the appearance of the gross physical body from the one undivided consciousness.
Yes. So it's the descent into body identification. You don't need to know all these stages. The only thing to be mindful of is the physical body appears real just as the dream body does. Individuality of the dream, the world in the dream are all just created by my imagination. This fundamentally is no different. Now, the shift between the dreamer and the waker is a gross shift. I'm sleeping in the morning and I'm dreaming away, and then the alarm goes off, ring, and I come out of it. The dream is gone. The shift between the ego self and the knowledge that I am Brahman, though profound, is a subtle shift. Just as definitely, when you go from the dreamer to the waker, the dreamer is gone. So too, you still the mind, and the space between your thoughts. You introvert your attention. Notice, Shunyata. It's empty. Where did Jim go? Where did Shupa go? Gone. Now we'll come back very subtly. Gee, I think I've got it. Who is it who thinks they have it? Be like those Terminators. I see you. Quack, 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 quack. You cannot fool me. I am Kshotriyam and I have Viveka. Oh, I'm a terrible yogi. I'm so identified. Don't believe it. Be like the Terminator 2s. You are Kshotriyam. You have Viveka. Don't believe it. steady and continuous identification with the self. The annihilation of the vasanas here and now is considered liberation by the wise. Next verse.
Evam jivo hi sankalpa vasana rajjuveshtitah dukkha jala paritatma kramat ayati chittatam. Thus, the individual soul, encircled by the rope of mental impressions and surrounded by the web of sorrow, gradually attains to the state of thinking.
So, when because of ignorance, I think I am the body and the world is real, when I'm cocooned by those vasanas, and I'm in this state of a sansari. Take all this beautiful Yiddish word mishigas. Mishigas means craziness. What a good word. Someone who's caught up in the mishigas is meshugana. Shugana. Take all this silliness as free. Then what do I want to do? For God's sake, I want to protect that damn ego. I want to be important. I want to be a little better than other people. This is what's wrong with them. That's a way for me to be a little more important. Or we do the opposite. They're normal people. I have this problem and I have this trauma and I have this story. Da, 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 da. It's another way for ego to feel somehow unique. I'm just a little bit more twisted and messed up than the next person. None of that is true. Stop. Swamiji used to thunder, shut up and get out, meaning stop. Quiet in your mind. Notice who you are. There's nobody there. Get out. Okay. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
Iti shaktimayam chetao dhanaham karatangatam koshakara krimi yadhat swechaya yati bandhanam evam jiva chito bhava bhava bhavana yehitaha. Thus, the individual consciousness, which is full of power or energy, has gone to the state of the dense or gross ego, just as the silkworm in the cocoon goes to the state of bondage by its own will. Thus, individual souls are states of the one consciousness wished or sought by the imagination or contemplation of worldly existence.
So it is because of my attachment to, my aversion to worldly existence, my endeavor to try to concretize a personal sense of self and protect it and defend it, improve it, that I cease to be what I would like, what I've been lately calling the liberated personality. The woman and of knowledge. who has no identification with the equipment, who's rooted in self-knowledge, then immense power comes through. Intelligence comes through. Good comes through. I love the way the Master Jesus phrased it. He said, I of myself do no thing. It is the Father within that doeth the work. That's what he called the self, Father. I and the Father are one. My Father always hears me because I do his will. I've turned my will and my life on the individual basis over to that infinite. St. Francis said, make me an instrument. So how does this intense power come through the woman of knowledge? When she disappears. It's a paradox. See Swamiji, so powerful, accomplishing all these things, brilliant talks, incredible insight. But if you hung out with him and tuned into him, shunyata, and paradox. Next verse.
There was a note that I missed.
All right, please read the note.
Note, the Upanishads figuratively describe that the one supreme reality desired, let me become many, and became all the universe.
And that's figurative speaking. Brahman has no desire. What manifests as the universe just is. Does the stream have the desire to flow down the mountain? Does the snow have the desire to melt when the temperature gets above freezing? If we anthropomorphize nature, we could say that. It just is. All right, going on.
Sorry, your vocabulary, anthropomorphize. How do you, is like anthropology? Or what?
Anthropomorphize means that rather than seeing man being created in the image and likeness of God, I create God in the image and likeness of man. I attribute to something human characteristics. That's to anthropomorphize something.
Like Zeus, something like Greek mythology.
Anthropos, man, morph, body.
Okay, thank you. My apologies.
So when I talk about the river god making the river flow, what I'm doing is attributing to the river basically human characteristics. Or if I say, I said a bad word, God's gonna be mad at me. You know, your father may get mad, your boss may get mad, God doesn't get mad. Or you have an accident, is God punishing me? No. Someone ran a red light. That's why you have an accident. Does that make it a little clearer? It's a good question. I probably should use to explain words like that if I use them.
Yes, I appreciate. I just wanted a definition of
No,
the words.
it's a
Thank
great
you. I
question.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Chances are, if you didn't understand it, other people didn't either. Going on.
Brahmana kalpitakara devateryang naradayah vibhinna iva drishyante budbudha varidheriva. Gods, animals, men, and others are forms fashioned from Brahman, the Supreme Spirit. They are seen as if divided or varied, just as the bubbles of the ocean.
Yes. So it looks like the names and forms are various, but they're not. They are like the bubbles in the ocean, which are nothing other than the ocean. There are other images that I like. So, for example, if you were here in my living room, you guys can see it. Can you see the snakes on the border of my carpet? They're black. Now, the snakes are woven into the woof and warp of the carpet. They're not painted on. It's woven. It's just black thread. And or if you look up at Krishna, you can see Krishna and the gopis and the peacocks. But that's one fabric. The painting is, it's one. It's a piece of fabric that someone's put some paint on. That's all this is. Brahman is the fabric. Brahman got out his paintbrush and painted names and forms. But all the names and forms are nothing but Brahman. Now, the ramifications of this are incredible. The names and forms can cease to exist. Brahman never ceases to be. If it truly is Sat, it has bhava, being. If it has no bhava, being, it doesn't really exist. The only thing that really exists that has bhava, being, is consciousness. So this is why in the second chapter, Arjuna goes, whine, self-pity. And Krishna says, you grieve for whom you should not grieve, though you speak words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. Nobody dies. Nobody's born. It's all like a long and very vivid. Now, going back to the earlier verses, if someone's mother has died of COVID, you don't say that to them. No, you meet people where they're at. I'm so sorry. How are you doing? Can I fix you some food? Do you need someone to talk to? This is what you do. You act compassionately. But for the woman or the man of wisdom, vivid show. But the material cause, the stuff of the whole universe, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is verily Brahman. First of all, never moves, is never touched. When we live from that place, then the world loses its ability to bring sorrow. Instead, it brings joy. What's the practice? I'm thinking what popped into my head is Mother Teresa of Calcutta. Have you walked around and seen smelly homeless people who are crazy? That's who she worked with all day long for decades when they're dying. She dealt with the poorest of the poor in Calcutta. In the midst of their vomit, their feces, their urine, their body odor, and endeavored to remember that person is Christ. That person is Krishna. That person is Brahma. That's just a name and form there. Care for the person there. Something we can all take on as a practice. All right, next one.
Iti Shri Vasishta Sangrahe Dhammatyupakyanam Nama Navam Sargaha. Thus ends the 9th chapter titled The Story of Dhamma and Others in the Abridgment of Yoga Vasishta.
Yes. So this ends that very, very important story. So, to summarize what I think are some of the important gems. First of all, understand this sequence. In the beginning, we have preparatory practices. We have our karma yoga. We have our devotional practices. We have the yamas and niyamas, the qualities, the 10 of them that occur in Raja Yoga. We develop the qualifications of a fit student. Then we begin Viveka, Vairagya, intense discrimination, intense renunciation. Till we're rooted in the self. Then we take up the practice. What is this world? It comes about like a dream. A few weeks ago, we had these 3 ego states, remember? You take on the ego state. All this is dreamlike. None of it ever touches me. I am ever asangaha, unattached. Or you can take on all this is verily myself, the self. Just stay away from I'm an individual and I like that person and I don't like that person. Until there's no inside, no outside. Then we're clear that it's all Brahman. second major idea here. We need to have a clear understanding of what gets me in trouble. My ignorance, Vasana. Because of ignorance, I think I'm a person and the world seems real. What reinforces that Vasana? Egoistic interaction with the world. I relate to the world from eines and meines. This belongs to me. I love it. Keep your hands off. I love that experience. I want to repeat it. That's what got the Terminators 1.0 in trouble. But hopefully, you're more Shotyam. You're better versed in the scriptures, which permits you to have some viveka, some discrimination. So when those kleshas, those afflictions arise, no, I'm not going to get caught in that. I'm going to hang on to my steady and continuous identification with the self. All right, I think we'll end a little bit early tonight. We have a few minutes. Does anyone have more questions?
Hi, Jim. This is Fang. I have a question.
I think.
Hi, Jim. My question is around what you said earlier about egoistic actions in the world that leads to vasanas, right? Like you said, if you have a prior experience of I like this, I don't like that, and therefore you want to do the thing that you liked over and over again. But at the same time, I mean, the karma body is action in the sense that like you still have preferences. You still have preferences to hang out with one person versus another person. It may not be a craving. You may be okay, like, but the preferences are still based on egoistic experiences, isn't it? Like you hang out with somebody one time, you're like, oh, I want to hang out with this person again. So where do you draw the line between like preferences and the egoistic action that leads to like vasanas? Is just like the strength of the preference? Is that the only criteria?
Where you will know is if you want to hang out with the person and they text you back and they say, can't do it today. How do you feel?
So it's just the strength of it. If it's a craving.
No, you're disappointed. I, Fang, am hurt by this. Remember the power of a vasana, the first power of a vasana. Don't worry too much about the projecting power, the desiring stuff. Deal with the ignorance. If you feel like Fang, you're deluded. So if you are at home and the desire to go hang out with friends arises, at least go through the process. To whom did this desire occur? To me. I desire to hang out with my friends, but what I really want is to abide in the self. Come to that place where you're very clear. I've given up loka vasana. Have we talked about that before? I can't remember.
Yes, that's one of the three vasanas.
3 vasanas, 3 layers of vasanas. Deva vasana, being fed and fondled and fornicated. Loka vasana, loka means world or people, hanging out, social interaction, contact, approval, validation, all of that stuff that has to go. Shastra vasana, technically unnecessary study of the scriptures. when I keep trying to figure stuff out. I think it's figure outable. So, for example, when you go hang out with a friend as a response to your loneliness, only you can figure that out. If you have loneliness, my suggestion, take some time to be lonely. Be with it. Don't die. I'm not saying be isolate. Be very careful here. But if there's a longing of any kind, you need to be ruthlessly honest with yourself and have mature vairagya. Is that useful, Fang?
Yeah, that's very useful. Thank you.
Good question. Again, when we talk about preferences and insistence, just make sure you don't fool yourself. Just make sure you don't fool yourself. Now, some of these vasanas are too strong, and we can't let go of the action. We have to live through them. What do? Do karma yoga. Do it in the spirit of sacrifice. Let go of your attachment to the fruit. Keep renouncing the sense of agency. There's no Fang there doing the doing. I am ever Brahman, watching the body do its silly dance. Keep watching, keep witnessing. All right, we'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om. Thank you all.
Thanks, Jim. Have a good night.
You too.